Hey guys, happy Valentine's Day. With it being Valentine's Day, I thought it'd only be right to go over one of my favorite passages that shows what love really looks like, not only between a husband and a wife, but also with Christ and his church. I even used parts of this passage in my own wedding vows just because I thought it really laid out the ideal love that is associated in marriage. Now, this passage is about 10 verses, so stay with me because I promise you're going to want to hear this. So, starting in Ephesians chapter 5, verses 22 through 24, it says, "Wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, his body, and is himself its Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit in everything to their husbands." So, wives are to submit to their husbands in the same way that the church submits to Christ, because the husband is the head of the wife, just as Christ is the head of the church. So, does this mean that the husband can do whatever he wants since he has this authority? Not at all. Because as we keep reading, it says in verses 25 through 27, "Husbands, love your wives, as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish." So, husbands are to love their wives in a self-sacrificial way, the same way Christ did the church. Christ suffered and laid down his life for the ultimate salvation of the church. So husbands are to love their wives in a way where they sacrifice for the well-being of his wife. And this is a beautiful thing, and it is a privilege as a husband to be the model of Christ in this way. And then it goes on to say in verses 28 through 30, "In the same way, husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself, for no one has ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes it and cherishes it, just as Christ does the church, because we are members of his body." So since a husband in his right mind wouldn't mistreat his own body, he is to not mistreat his wife, since he is to love her as his own body, just as Christ loves the church, because the church is part of his body. And then finally, the chapter concludes with verses 31 through 33, where it says, "Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This mystery is profound, and I am saying that it refers to Christ and the church. However, let each one of you love his wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband." So the reason the husbands are to love their wives as themselves is because they are one with their wife. When you get married, you become one flesh with your spouse. And this is truly an amazing thing, because you are no longer two independent people, but one. And just as the husband and wife are one, so is Christ and the church. And this is why Christ has such a deep love for the church, and this love is to be the model for an ideal marriage. So in conclusion, wives, submit to your husbands as he is the head of the family, just as the church submits to Christ as Christ is the head of the church. And husbands, love your wives in the self-sacrificial way, in the same way Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. And do this because you are not two, but one, just as Christ is one with the church. And I promise you, if you keep to this model, you will know what real love looks like, and you have a very fruitful marriage, just as Christ does with the church. Again, happy Valentine's Day.